Got it.
Hello and welcome. We'll wait till you connect to audio and I will introduce my friends. We have Sheba Williams of No Left Turns. We have J.M. Padini of Normal. We have Vicki Williams Cullens of OPN-Door Communications. And we are here today, my good folk, to talk about Cannabis 2023 and your vote. JM, I'm going to start with you first. If you could give us an overview about cannabis legislation, the legislators, 2023.
I mean, okay, sure. So here's what I can, Vicki, and I'm so glad you asked me.
Oh, thank you,
Here's
JM.
what
Hello,
happened
Ray.
in the 2023 General Assembly when it comes to cannabis. Nothing. I mean, that's a little hyperbolic because we did send 6 medical cannabis bills to the governor's desk. And these aren't particularly exciting bills. They're the standard improvement bills that we have to make the program work better for patients every year. And boy, he's got an amendment for every single one of them. So that's what happened. But what Virginians are really after is when will the retail sales of adult use cannabis begin? Marijuana is legal for adults 21 and older in Virginia. But unless you're participating in the medical program, you cannot go to the dispensaries that are already open. You can only go shop at dispensaries if you're a medical patient, which is confusing for people because marijuana is legal for adults in Virginia, right?
So where are they supposed to buy it at?
Great question, Vicki. Not at safe, regulated dispensaries. So, for the 3rd consecutive session, the Virginia General Assembly has failed to advance to the governor a bill to legalize and regulate the retail sales of cannabis to adults 21 and older. And this is because, what? Everyone say it with me, elections have consequences.
And elections, you as the voter, you have power. And apparently it wasn't used. JM, I'm sorry, I had to jump on that bandwagon.
No, you're right. You're right.
So let's talk about Delta 8 for a minute. Right. Delta 8 is legal to purchase, but there's been some pushback or there's been some controversy about that. Could you expound upon that for a minute?
Yeah, so the administration, let's back up. In the 2022 General Assembly, there was some legislation to try to address the myriad of unregulated products that are for sale across the Commonwealth. And Senator Hanger had a bill, and ultimately it was sent to the governor, but then when it came back during veto session, it died. And so the governor put some language in the budget to try to prevent the sale of these products in packaging that is appealing to children or to children. Sale of these products just to children. In the sale and it prohibited putting synthetic marijuana-like substances into food. But he did so through the budget, and the enforcement mechanism around these provisions in the budget are pretty weak. It wasn't really all that meaningful. It looked good on paper, but it just in practicality didn't do what they wanted it to do. So we tried again this legislative session, which is entirely expected because they've been very vocal. The administration and the governor have been very vocal about this, and it's not unique to Virginia. Listen, this is happening around the country. Other states already prohibit the sale of unregulated products. There's nothing novel about this. So the governor has made clear what his objectives are. And that's to remove, sort of colloquially, we would say, remove Delta 8 from shelves, but that's not really the only product. It's just sort of like the
The
word,
product that's
the word he knows, and the word the
right.
administration knows, right?
Okay.
What he really means is unregulated marijuana and unregulated synthetic marijuana-like products. Doesn't want those on store shelves. And so there was a legislative effort to address that.
Mhm.
And ultimately, there were two bills that sort of bubbled up to the top and made their way to the governor. And now the governor is proposing amendments to those bills. I guess we'll see what happens on reconvened day. You also hear people call this, like I just did a second ago, call it veto session. It means the same thing, but it's when the legislature reconvenes for one day to approve or reject any amendments that were proposed by the governor on legislation. So that will happen on April 12th.
Okay.
And we'll see what happens.
All right. So Sheba, I want you to discuss or just kind of give us some insight on justice impacted persons, expungement, cannabis, and voting all at once. No, I'm just kidding.
I'd say how much time we got. So first of all, cannabis. When the cannabis bill first for adult use first came about, we heard this big push for repairing the harms for people who have been harmed by the war on drugs. We're in the 50-year anniversary of the failed war on drugs, and there has been nothing done to repair the communities that have been harmed. And it's not just people who have been arrested. It is K through 12 education. It is parks and recs. It is housing. It is sewage, street lamps. All of those things have been impacted by this failed war on drugs because we have policing of certain communities. We have been using pretextual stops to stop people and search them for the smell of marijuana, which we know for a fact not everybody is riding and smoking in their cars. That has not been the common thing, but there have been people who have been caught up in these systems based on that. But when we're talking about adult use, when we first started the process back in 2020, what was 2020? We did simple possession. It was looked at, and then they added misdemeanor possession with intent to distribute in 2021. We've been fighting to get this adult use market up and running since then, and we want it done with equity. We want it done with social equity for the people who have truly been harmed by this war on drugs, and a lot of times that is people who are justice impacted. I feel this new administration doesn't want to do that. And much like anything else, if it means making sure that Black and brown communities who have been the target of a lot of these arrests, these over policing, over incarceration, over sentencing, over incarceration, I said that before, they don't want to address the harms, but they want to make the money off of it. So that is a big thing. And if we're talking about expungement, we can go ahead and clap for our governor today who signed our expungement cleanup bill without resistance. And all that means is when the expungement bill passed in 2021, we had historic legislation that for the first time in the history of Virginia allowed for sealing of records of certain convictions, not all. So as part of the Virginia Expungement Council, we still fight to have the 576 people who still have cannabis convictions released. Before we talk about making billions of dollars off of this plant, we still fight for people's records to be clear, because what people don't know or what people don't understand is Virginia State Police says, yes, we've removed these records from public view, but it's not truly removed from public view. You can still look up on the court system, or you can still access any third-party vendor, and that charge, that conviction, that arrest is still visible to the public. It's just not visible on Virginia State Police background, which is pointless because most people don't go through that outdated, mundane process of going to getting a paper background check. They usually go through a third-party vendor. What that means is in 2025, when the process for expungement or record sealing will be implemented for people with convictions, the cannabis convictions will officially be removed from people's records public view, and people who sell criminal records have to register at that point. So what am I forgetting? Where are we? Voting rights. Voting rights.
Hold on, Sheba, before you go there, let's talk about expunge. What conviction is actually being expunged? Is it a felony? Is it a misdemeanor?
So right now, what is eligible for automatic expungement is misdemeanor possession of cannabis, misdemeanor possession with intent to distribute. Everything else, aside from 6 now, because they remove underage drinking from the automatic list because there is no CCRE record, which means that if a underage person gets caught with alcohol, it goes on their juvenile record, but it's not reported to a crime database that makes it like a criminal offense. That's why they stay on the automatic list. But there are seven other items, which are things like trespassing, obstruction of justice, petty larceny, and a few other things because I'm forgetting, which will be automatically removed. Everything else will have to be done by petition. And if people are paying attention, all across the state, you'll see a bunch of expungement clinics. So right now, and I get this question all the time, right now, the only people who are eligible for expungement, which is destroying of the record, are people who have non-convictions. Starting in 2025, only a limited amount of people will be eligible for record sealing, which means that the record always exists. It just is removed from public view. And there are certain entities who will always be able to access it, like police, FBI, banking, etc. So we're in a conundrum where we are waiting for the process to start, and people think that, oh, we legalized cannabis, so this thing shouldn't impact my housing or employment or my driving privileges or my ability to have access to my kids, or these things are still happening. People still have to be very mindful of personal use, medical or adult use. They still have to be very mindful of these things being used to criminalize them. Because what we're seeing out of our CCA board meetings and all of the things that are coming down from a lot of these legislators is more and more ways to attempt to criminalize people in this interim process until we get an adult use market.
And I think that's part of a huge issue. And it was, I don't know if you had said it or if JM had said it about, I think it was you, Sheba, people driving and smoking recently. And as someone who is a medical cannabis consumer and consumes legally, right? I consume within my home. I'm not outside in the street walking with a joint or smoking so much that if I go into a CVS that I smell like it. But that should not mean that I should be arrested. Simply because I may smell like it and it may be annoying, but that doesn't mean I consumed right then or, but I think that people have confused. I don't even know if it's confused or they're listening to what they want to hear. The legalization of cannabis consumption means that I can do it anywhere I want to do it. JM, would you like to chime in?
I'd love to. And so, it's good for you, Vicki, that you have the luxury to consume cannabis in your home.
Absolutely.
Everyone does. And so what's interesting about Virginia's law, it doesn't really account for this well, but since you were talking about vehicles before, it is absolutely illegal in Virginia to have an open container of cannabis in your moving vehicle or to be consuming cannabis in a moving vehicle, whether you're a driver or a passenger. But it is not illegal to consume cannabis in a parked car in Virginia. And you may not be stopped, searched, or seized solely for the odor of cannabis. Now, listen, if you're driving a car and law enforcement says, well, I watched the car, it crossed the line, that's why I pulled them over, then I smelled cannabis, that's going to be permissible. But what we repealed in 2021 special session, 2020 special, I don't know how time works
I
anymore.
think it's 2021.
2020 special session, what we
Was
repealed it was decrim was 2020, then it was special session 2020 was this.
Oh,
the repeal of odor is the sole reason. And then here we are, 2021 legalization. So look, shouldn't drive high, you shouldn't drive impaired, period, for any reason.
Right.
It's responsible and it's stupid. And while the law is very clear, you also want to set yourself up for success. And the best law enforcement interaction that happens around cannabis is the one that never happens. So if you have to transport cannabis in your car for some reason, even if you're a medical patient and you've picked it up the dispensary and it's totally legal and it's actually a different term in code than marijuana, look, make good choices, friends.
Lock it up.
Lock
Make
it up
good
in your
choices,
trunk.
friends. Yes, you want to put it in a locking container. Why? Because locks require search warrants. You want to put it in a locking container and you want to put it in your trunk. If you don't have a trunk, then behind the last row of passenger seating. You want to make good choices. You want to make it clear that you are not trying to break the law.
Mm-hmm.
Do
And
those
that's very
things.
important. And you know what, JM, there was something that you said. It is good that you have the capability to consume in your home.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, not everyone does. You know, a lot of people live in homes that they don't personally own, or they live in multifamily housing, whatever it might be. And there are, you know, if you are a renter, if you are a tenant in Virginia, you're subject to essentially the the whims of your landlord. And
Mhm.
it's absolutely, you know, just like they can say you can't have cats in this apartment, you can say they can say you can't consume cannabis in this
Mhm.
apartment, or you can't smoke, period, in this home, or you cannot cultivate cannabis outdoors in this property, because that's, you know, that's the ability for landlords to do in the state of Virginia. So
Absolutely. And I was glad that you mentioned that, because that's why folks may want to consume in their parked car,
exactly.
because that's something they own,
Yes,
and
but
they
in
may want,
public,
but
right?
not in public.
Right, because if they were outside of their car, if they stood in the parking lot next to their car,
Okay.
then they would be subject to a $25 fine for the
But if
first
they're
offense.
in their car,
They're in their car, they're technically not breaking the law, they're not in public, but you're also setting yourself up for law enforcement interactions. There's just it's not a good situation.
Mhm.
And knowing the law can be helpful, but it's also not really going to help you
Right.
in law enforcement interaction situation.
So it could get a little tricky. Make good choices, friends.
Cannot say it enough.
Lock it up. Be mindful. Do not drive impaired. We don't drive drunk. We don't drive impaired. Sheba, you want to chime in?
There are things in place right now that are getting prepared for testing, roadside testing.
Mm,
You know, it hasn't been approved yet. There's no scientific data behind it, but this administration, this Commonwealth is working really hard to crack down on drug driving,
mhm,
you know, and things like that. So you really have to think about how much do you want to risk,
mhm.
because there is a very gray area. Yeah, it's legalized. We celebrated, it was great. And then we realized that there's a whole lot left to be desired. And when we talk about how do we make sure that people are protected? How do we make sure that we are not getting caught up in a criminal justice system based on our ability to use, because it is legal to consume. It's not legal to to have and sell and trade seeds and things in Virginia yet. So where you get it from means that you got to take a chance of crossing state lines or growing yourself, but you still got to cross state lines to get seeds. So, you know, we're kind of set up to take a risk no matter how we go about this. You really have to be careful about what you're doing and knowledge of the law, because ignorance of the law is not an excuse in any courtroom. And you can't just say, I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know. They don't care. Most
Right.
people don't learn the law until they're caught up in the law.
And I think, I mean, just recently we've seen bust in Richmond, seen bust in Hampton Roads. Folks they're having it's like an open set, and then they have cannabis products there, but no one owns the products and no one's actually selling it. They may be trading it, so on and so forth. Remuneration is illegal in Virginia in any capacity. So let me say that remuneration is I'm trading something for something else. So like if I got a pound of weed, or if I got, well, not a pound, an ounce, I want to stay legal. I have an ounce and you have a Louis Vuitton bag, which really, and you want to trade me a little Louis Vuitton clutch bag for an ounce, that's illegal. And however, if you're having a party or you're doing a massage set and folks got to pay to come into this massage set and cannabis is consumed in that massage set, they had to pay for entrance to obtain the cannabis to consume. JM?
Yup.
Yup.
Yup. Look, people think they're getting real creative on ways to break the law in Virginia, and like, I guess snaps for that. But here's the thing, right? Like, when white people line up around the block and fill up some parking lot to get their free seeds at a giveaway that's definitely not legal, the only thing people are complaining about is that they're blocking the parking spaces.
However, if people of color line up and they're getting seeds, I promise you, we're going to get arrested.
It's not going down the same way. So white people, stop being disgusting and doing gross things. Second, everyone collectively maybe don't be doing illegal stuff because
so publicly. So
we're talking about
bad ideas.
Here we go. JM says, make good choices, friends. Now,
someone made this and sent it to me because I say it so much.
I'm gonna make my own because me and Canva are best friends.
Sherry Hayworth will make you one. She is Sherry Bomb on Instagram.
I can't. I see that, but can you text that to me, please, JM?
I can.
And I will order it from them. That means I don't have to make it myself. Okay, that's even better. Nice. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about laws. We're going to do a brief tutorial on laws and how all these words come together and they turn into a bill and they become a law. And who are the people behind this? Legislators. And how do legislators get there? Guess what? You vote them in. So, JM, I'm going to give you a little floor to talk about how a bill becomes a law and about these legislators and all that.
First, let me tell you this, Vicky. Yesterday,
whoever I am,
other friend, other friend. This Zoom is just a bunch of my friends, so I love it. So I don't know what's Tuesday. Today's Thursday. So Tuesday there was a special election in Virginia for a Senate district. And I went to my precinct and I went late. I came from work and I was probably the last person to cast a ballot at around 6:20. Even though there were 40 minutes left, I'm pretty certain I was the last person. Why? Because when I went to my precinct, I was the 53rd person to vote that day. We're electing a senator and only 53 people where I live thought it was worth showing up. So sure. I don't want to hear anything from anyone who lives anywhere by me.
So I got it.
So someone gets an idea.
Y'all. I was
hold up, JM. Sheba got to chime in. Chime in.
Same thing. I was number 77 at 5 p.m. And historically, in a primary, in a special election, sometimes even in a general election, about 2% of the eligible voters actually participate.
2%.
And what we get at the end of that is, why didn't this get passed? Why didn't you all fight for this? Why can't you help me with this? Can you help my loved one? I do justice work. Can you help my loved one get home? Can you help with expungement? Can you help with my pardon petition? Guess what? I can't. I can't help get anything legalized. I can't help get anybody registered or restored or supported or released if people don't show up to vote, because who you vote in or who you sit out and allow to take position makes all the difference. And if they don't share the same values and beliefs that people who you expect to give second chances or give liberation or give freedom or give access to public use, adult use, medical use, whatever you care about, if it's education, if it's healthcare, if it's abortion rights, if it is trans rights, if it is cannabis, if it is the street light on your corner, whatever you care about, it is your responsibility and your duty to show up and cast your vote. Otherwise, you cannot look at the people who do show up and say, why didn't you get this done? There is no room to complain if you think that, oh shit, sorry, we lied. Everybody else will show up and vote, and we will get who we need in office, because the people who share the values that you care about matter. And if you don't do anything else, you need to have conversations with people who say they want to represent you, because guess what? They are readily available when they want your vote. They are not as readily available when you go to them and say, why did you vote this way? I care about X, Y, and Z, and you voted on the opposing side of it. You should have known these people's intent and what they care about before you allow somebody else to vote them in office. That's my piece, and I'm gonna let y'all.
Is that your piece? Well, let me say my piece. They are public servants. They are here to serve you. The power they wield is the power you've given them. They have to know that you have the capability to vote them out and vote them in. One vote, I promise you, on everything I love, especially in a state election, can make an absolute difference in the trajectory of the makeup of the legislators. The Senate and the House, the entire body is up for election in November. The entire body. So, one, make sure you know your polling places, because redistricting happened. So you need to check. If you haven't voted this year, and God knows Virginia doggone has a election every 3 to 5, 6, 7, 8 months, something.
4 weeks.
I know, right?
Yeah.
7 weeks. But at the end of the day, you have to do your due diligence. Check your registration status, because they will purge records. Okay? And that's a real thing that they legally can do during the federal election year. So check your registration status and know where your polling place is. Your precinct may have changed. Thank you so much, JM. Your precinct may have changed. So JM, I stole your opportunity to tell us how a bill becomes a law.
Listen, it was great though, because Sheba basically said what was up, but like in the context of voting. So I did drop in the chat for you 2 super important things. Number 1, what you were talking about, Vicky, make sure you're registered to vote and make sure you update your voter registration. You can do that at normal.org/vote. That's NORML.org/vote. Super easy peasy. Next, know when to vote, where to vote, know who's on your ballot, and know where they stand on cannabis policy. We got all that for you at vanormal.org/elections. Now,
I was about to put you on the spot for that, JM.
I got you.
Are we gonna give any guidelines from Virginia Normal about candidates and their position on cannabis?
Yes. We have a whole voter guide. We have an entire voter guide at Normal. It's called Smoke the Vote. The voter guide is legalizing marijuana in your state. Even after you've already legalized, by the way, we still have a voter guide for you, because we represent you, consumers, people who oppose prohibition and think that those who do choose to consume cannabis responsibly ought not be treated like second-class citizens. Just like you were talking about before, legalization, as Sheba rightly noted, is not the end-all be-all. You still have to undo all the other terrible things that the tendrils that have woven their roots into the fabric of our democracy post-legalization. So
we do have a voter guide.
We do have a voter guide. We have a candidate survey. If you know someone running for office, send them right to that candidate survey. It's all on the Virginia Normal website under the elections tab. Everything one easy to find place. They put their information in there. We put it in the guide. We give them
fantastic. I
if they're
appreciate
an incumbent and they do not submit the guide or the survey, guess what? We're still grading them based on their votes. So
Oh, that's important. And that's the other thing. If there were bills that did not work for y'all, that they did not support, you can actually go. Do you have a link, JM,
Oh yeah,
where
you
they
can
can
use,
go
mhm.
to the legislate? What's that site called?
Oh, to
LEG,
LIS, absolutely.
LIS.
If you want to see what happened this session, let me just get that link for you right here. Here
Thank
is
you.
our legislative tracker. These are all the marijuana related bills that are moving through the Virginia General Assembly right now. And links to LIS, that's Legislative Information
System.
So you can click on LIS and see the full scope of what happened with the bill. But there's the down majority right there.
And that is so important because folks will tell you what they want, that what you want to hear, but they won't tell you the truth. So they could be in an open forum and you can ask them, well, do you support the legalization of cannabis for adult regulated use? Do you support that? And in front of 9,000 people or 500 people or 300 people, they'll say, yes, I do. But then if you go to the LIS system and you look at the bill that had been introduced and you look at who voted on that bill and you find out that very person who said they were supportive of that bill did not support that bill, then you know they're a liar and you don't vote for them. Sheba, before we open it up for questions from our audience, I want you, if you don't mind, if you could speak about the restoration of rights and speak about justice impacted folks who've gotten their rights restored and the importance of them engaging in the political process.
So I think I kind of touched on it before, where
Okay.
we are going through this process that is rooted in the history of slavery. In 1902, Virginia had a constitutional convention, and the goal of felony disenfranchisement was specifically to disenfranchise as many Black people as possible. This is not my opinion. This was written. Carter Glass said it out loud. It's documented in history. We know that was the goal of felony disenfranchisement. Unfortunately, many other Virginians also got caught up in this felony disenfranchisement and lost their right to vote. In 2013, Governor McDonnell started the process of reinstating rights of individuals who had felony convictions, who had completed their sentences. He did the process. He reinstated my rights in 2013. And then Governor McAuliffe came in 2016 and tried to reinstate the rights of 231,000 Virginians automatically, but it was challenged, went to the Supreme Court, those people's rights were rescinded, and we had to go back and knock on doors and get as many people as possible registered. Governor McAuliffe blew the roof off of the number, streamlined the process, removed the requirement for people to pay fines, fees, and restitution before they could get their rights back. Governor Northam came in, continued the process. On March 2021, I don't know the exact date, we were in a 7 a.m. hearing for privileges and elections, and I informed the legislators at the time that there was a such thing as indefinite probation, which meant that people who were on parole and probation were at the behest of one person, their probation officer, who could say whether or not they had the authority to be released and be eligible to vote. Over the course of time, they have reinstated over 250,000 people's rights. This new administration has come in and changed the process. We used to have a streamlined application and a 2 to 4 week turnaround. It is now 1 month to infinity because we really don't know. They have added the question about whether or not you have a violent conviction. They have added the question about whether or not you owe fines, fees, and restitution. And they also require you to upload proof that you're either on a payment plan or you have paid all of your fines, fees, and restitution. We are vehemently against this requirement to go back and require fines, fees, and restitution to be paid in alignment with voting rights, because it's akin to a poll tax. That does not mean that people do not pay their fines, fees, and restitution, because there are collection efforts. There are where your probation officer can keep you on probation. You do not pay it, especially restitution. You cannot be released from probation if you still owe restitution, period. So people can vote and still walk and chew gum at the same time. Absolutely. The process has changed, and the last restoration of rights group was only 800 people, but that's not the problem. The problem is each governor that comes in has the authority to change things based on how they feel. We have been fighting for a constitutional amendment for universal suffrage, which means that people don't lose their rights ever based on a felony conviction, because we know it is rooted in racism and slavery. What we got was a constitutional amendment for automatic restoration of rights. And that still has failed consistently for the decade. Senator Mamie Locke has put in her bill. Delegate Herring has put in her bill. Delegate Mike Cherry, who is also a pastor, put in a bill in this session to limit this to nonviolent convictions and require fine, fees, and restitution. But the important thing is, his first year in session as a rookie, he put in a bill for universal suffrage and automatic restoration rights with no restrictions. The caucus demanded that he change the process. And even though they didn't docket this bill, we now have a restoration of rights process that has been changed, and it impacts the 1 in 3 adults who have criminal records in the state of Virginia. What people need to know and understand is all of the people who are eligible to vote, they stayed home. Less than 1% of people who have been restored under this system actually registered to vote and participated in the process. I don't care if Daffy Duck is on the ballot, I'm going to be there, because guess what? I lost my rights for 9 years for a 5-year probation sentence because of restitution, and it impacts everything from what happens in my kids' schools, what happens with the federal dollars from the ARPA funding, what happens with the school lunch, who qualifies for SNAP, who qualifies for Medicaid. Everything is wrapped up in your vote. And when you sit it out and say, my vote doesn't matter, you give away your voice. So I don't want to hear, what can you do for me? How can you help me? Why isn't this legal? Why don't we have legal cannabis? Why am I still being killed behind the tail light being out? If you don't give me the power and authority to do my job. I do justice work. I have been in this justice work, and I think I'm in a unique position because I'm a person who is directly impacted, but I lead with my heart, I lead with love and dignity, and I believe that every single person in our Commonwealth deserves to be free and have liberation for what they need. And I'm gonna fight for it whether I believe in what you fight for or not. But if you don't take the authority to use your own voice, you can't get mad at the people who are showing up and argue with us about why we didn't do X, Y, and Z, because guess what? I'm still at the General Assembly. JM is still at the General Assembly. All of us are still showing up, whether we stand alone or we have 1,000 people behind us. And if we do not have the people in position who will make the changes, who believe in the things that you all want, then there's nothing we can do but show up and get sent away for year number 3. Year number 4, because people said, I'm gonna sit out this election because my vote doesn't count. If your vote did not matter, people would not fight so hard to take it away.
You better say that again. Say it again. They will impede it. Absolutely, they will block it.
I vote early. It's too easy to vote. You can request your absentee ballot no matter where you at in the world. You can show up, you can vote early. We even got Sunday voting. There is no excuse. There is no excuse for not participating in this process. And I don't want to see another voter roll and number that comes out on the Department of Elections website that says 2% of people in the state of Virginia voted, but I got 60 people in my inbox saying, help me with X, Y, Z, and D.
Absolutely. I want to make sure, does anybody have any questions? Greg?
Yes.
Charlie?
I do have a question.
Please.
So I'm curious what your guys' position on 903B, whatever, in the governor's amendments. Is everyone here for the amendments or against them?
Sam?
This is an
See,
administration bill, and so what I can tell you is what the bill does. I don't think that the amendment really achieves the goals of the bill from the administration's perspective, and I'm not certain that it achieves the goal that consumers were looking for either. I think the most important part about it from our perspective is that it maintains the truth in labeling. Consumers deserve to know what they're buying.
Mhm.
And
So
you said
when I,
something
when,
earlier, Vicky,
Mhm.
that made me think about this. When we were talking about people losing their jobs, their kids,
Mhm.
their housing, their access to healthcare. And there are products on shelves right now today where, we expect a lot of consumers, we expect them to know a whole lot of science and be able to do a whole lot of math
Mhm.
and be able to do a lot of internet sleuthing and maybe even go to a third-party laboratory that's actually regulated in order to find out what's in their product.
Mhm.
But the reality is that consumers don't do that. And so they are
Mhm.
losing their kids and their jobs and their healthcare
Mhm.
because they're consuming products that contain
Other things.
products that make them have a dirty urine screen for
Right.
marijuana. So, should safe regulated products be available for sale in the Commonwealth? Absolutely. Whether it's labeled medical or adult use is irrelevant. At the end of the day, consumers deserve to know that what's on the label is what's actually in the package, and no one should have to click through 40 different links or do math to find that out.
Greg, did you have anything else, sir?
yeah, are you guys for the 903 amendments or against them?
I think what they stated was that they're administrative amendments. Basically, what that means is that's what the governor has put in place. And the part, it's not whether we agree or disagree. The part that is important is that labels should reflect what is actually in the product. So are you for or against it? Do you think labels should reflect what's absolutely in the product?
Yes, so I am for it, and I'm going to show up on the 12th because I show up to vote. I show up to all that. I have had my rights taken away,
Okay.
all that. Like I've had, be unbondable. It has affected my life significantly. But anyways, I'm going to show up and support the 903 amendments because if it doesn't pass both the House and the Senate, I'm pretty sure the previous version gets approved per the state code. Like I've just only started learning about politics since cannabis was decriminalized. But I'm full time learning and trying to do my best.
Well, you know
Uh,
what? I'm going to tell you, Greg, I appreciate you being on here tonight. And I also appreciate your transparency. Politics is not interesting. Politics is not, frankly, it's not sexy, right? It's not
no,
fun. It's not fun. So you got to be a policy wonk like Sheba, JM, and myself. So I appreciate what you're sharing, and I appreciate you going. If there's a place you can go to support this, I think you should do it. Because at the end of the day, that's how you learn how to engage. Because you don't have to support everything that you show up at, but most definitely learn how to engage. So I commend you for that. I got one more. I think I got one more question. Lauren?
I think I answered it.
Lauren, you think you answered it?
I think so.
Oh, that's not Lauren.
Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Computer, and they're all in different places.
Hey, Lauren, what's going on there?
I don't know. I feel crazy. I can't believe after 10 years, we finally have medical. It's like one of the most restrictive bills in the country. It was a big mess, but we got there. So
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
we opened the door, so that was important. But yeah, it was our legislature does where you have to have the majority of the majority to even get it to a vote. So we had to do all of our accounts and not include any of the Democrats because we had to have a majority of Republicans vote to get it to the floor. So it was a fight, and we did it.
Congratulations.
Can I say double high five virtual? Virtual high five.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
it was a lot of work, and we still have a lot of work, but like I
Yeah.
said, we got it started. JM like coached me all year, like just let them say yes. We can fix it later. Calm down. Doesn't have to be perfect, and you need somebody like that to kind of hold your hand and feel like it's going to be okay. Just get the yes,
We got to
Because-
get the yes. And
Yes,
then
and we had to tell everybody the same thing. Like, let's just get the yes. We'll fix things as we go through. But yeah, I mean, we already have promises to go back and take out nurses being able to administer medication to children in school. They want to change where there's an option, and we tried telling them, school's already like, I don't know about y'all, but we in rural places there are no school nurses. What are you talking about? We have to go up to the school and give our medicine to our children ourselves.
wow, are you serious?
Yes, or you
I'm
give it to them in
laughing
the
like I
morning
didn't know.
and you give it to them when they get home,
Wow.
and then you get that third dose in maybe like right before bed. If it's like 3.
Wow.
Mhm. So it's a lot of boogeyman silly stuff, but we got there, and I honestly I don't know where my brain is. I know we have a lot of work to do, and working with conservatives would be very, very hard, especially when they refuse to read, they refuse to look at the facts, they refuse, and what can you do?
We keep talking about it. We
yeah.
keep talking about it. Even if we have 4 people on, we still keep talking about it because we're going to record and we're going to share. And that's what's so important about the vote, right? I want to check. Charlie, are you good? Charlie doesn't say anything. I guess Charlie's good. So I want to be mindful of everyone's time, and I want to give my 2 panelists, my 2 humans, my 2 friends, an opportunity to talk about very quickly the power of your vote. And let me see. I think I'm gonna go to Sheba first. Sheba, I'm gonna go to you first.
You gotta vote. That's the first step, but you gotta take it a step further. You gotta be educated. You gotta be willing to have the conversations, but don't be overwhelmed by this process. What you care about, make that your priority to learn about, and talk to these people. Talk to these people who are in office. Talk to these people who are interested in running, because what a lot of candidates and a lot of legislators don't understand is they may run on one platform, but they got to answer to all these platforms. They have to sit on different commissions and different committees, committees, not commissions, but they also have to sit on commissions.
Yep.
Vote, run, serve, lead. That means stop avoiding jury duty. If you care about this carceral system and how we got to where we are, this 50th year of mass incarceration, serve on boards. Serve on boards where they make decisions about the money. Serve on boards where they make decisions about our health. Serve on boards that you don't often hear about until it's too late. Because when the money is distributed, when the budget is written, those boards have already met 4 to 12 times the year before. Take your voice and what you care about to the legislators who represent you. And if they are not serving your interests, vote them out.
Yep.
Run for office if that is your ministry. I ain't running for office because I cuss on TV by accident. I'm here for my community. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my part, and I won't get overwhelmed when I can't do it all, because this is a democracy that requires all of us to participate. And I say it all the time, and I'll say it again. If your vote did not matter, they would not fight so hard to keep it from you. Access your vote, check on your deadlines, make sure 6 weeks before any election that all of your information is updated. Stay on top of them. When the election is over, that doesn't mean the work is over. Talk to these people where they are, and we get a lot of people. We get a lot of people who do lobby days and they're excited and they want to go talk to all the people who support what they want. Go talk to people who you think are in opposition, and you'll find sometimes that they're not actually in opposition. They haven't been educated about it. I don't know how many legislators say, "Oh, I didn't know this. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for bringing this to my attention." And they vote based on who is the loudest in the room sometimes. So make that connection, keep that connection. They are here to serve you year round. Bother them at their office addresses when they go back to their localities and build, because when session is in January, every single year. Legislators are doing 15-minute meetings here, there. They don't want to hear. I'm not gonna say they don't want to hear, but it is not as effective if you don't build that relationship before our part-time session comes in for 45 or 60 days every year. It is important to build these relationships when these legislators decide to come to your faith communities and all of these different places. Ask them the questions that you're gonna get on record, because when it gets time for them to be in office, they need to be held accountable for what they promised when they ask for your vote.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sheba. JM.
Yeah, I mean, Sheba said it all. Listen, you campaign for the people that you like, vote for the people that want what you want. But regardless of who wins, that's who represents you. And so then you have to continue to work with these people. Once they represent you, that's your person. That's what you got. And you have to stay engaged, and you have to be able to talk to people about the issues that you care about in a way that, no, this is not necessarily popular when I say it, but in a way that's polite and friendly and encourages interaction. If you are a jackass coming at these people, they don't want to talk to you. And since we're talking about cannabis, if you're rolling up to the General Assembly in your finest weed shirt, smelling like a blunt, it's going to be real hard for your new conservative senator to have a conversation with you, because you don't look like, sound like, or smell like what they're emotionally comfortable with. And I have news, like not we in this room, but we Virginia legislators in Kentucky, legislators legislate based on their emotional comfort. They're not making choices based on data and science. If they were, 2 decades after regulating cannabis in the United States, we wouldn't be having these same conversations. We wouldn't have just legalized medical cannabis in Kentucky 8 years after we did in Virginia. Like they're legislating based on feelings. And so you've got to be able to be emotionally palatable, right, with these folks. You want to challenge them on policy, not on personality. So if you're going to go talk to people, smell nice, look like you're going to work or church, something like that, meet them where they're at, and be ready to ask the questions so you know what you're working with. You need to know what they think so that you can present them with information that they'll be willing to listen to. And that's why we've made progress in Virginia. That's why we've made progress in Kentucky. That's why we've made progress across the United States, because we're able to take an issue that is difficult after decades of misinformation, that is difficult, that is often really sciencey and really wonky, and find those emotional hooks to make people care about it. When people care about the issue, then they want to do something. When people care about you, then they want to help you. And all those things are a lot easier when you are building those relationships and talking to those people that represent you, whether you voted for them or not.
And that's so important. So relationships, and relationships. Do not be uncomfortable meeting with your legislator. My husband always says they put their pants on the same way you do at the end of the day. Also, they want your vote, and they have to see value in you to want their vote. At the end of the day, we have to come to them and address them in a pragmatic manner. Passion is a beautiful thing, but passion can also discolor your ability to hear their points of view. Passion will also cause someone else to shut down. Because if you're so passionate about the issue, you're not going to listen. That doesn't mean that they're right. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. But what we're aiming for is a productive conversation, productive discourse. When you are knocking on their door, making those calls, tweeting them, Facebooking them, Instagramming them, and you're doing that on a regular basis, even if it's once a month, sending them a letter once a month, they're gonna be like, doggone it, here go Vicky letter again. Doggone it, here go Vicky email again. Doggone it, Vicky done call again. Oh, doggone it, I gotta talk to Vicky. And guess what? Just like with anyone, you start to talk to someone in a decent manner, you build a relationship with it. You start to build a relationship with someone, they really start to listen to you. They start to hear you. And then they're like, oh, okay, maybe I can advocate for this. You have a right to do that, even if you didn't vote for that legislator. And frankly, though legislators tend to listen more so to people in their districts, I still have a right to talk to any legislator throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. Because I might know someone in their district and I might be able to sell them. So don't be afraid. You absolutely hold the power. As Sheba, JM, and I have passionately and pragmatically stated to you, your vote is your voice. When you don't vote, you mute your voice. When you mute your voice, folks don't hear your concerns. When they don't hear your concerns, they don't act upon them. When they don't act upon them, they don't advocate for you. So, as I always want to be mindful of everyone's time, I thank you so much for joining me this evening. Sheba, thank you, my friend. JM, thank you, my friend. And I'm going to continue to do this because I'm advocating not only for cannabis, but for people who've had heart conditions, cancer survivor, and stroke survivors. So I got a lot to advocate about. So at the end of the day, vote your voice. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great evening. Talk to y'all later, friends. Bye. Thank you.